Micah condemned an Israel that had gotten fat. Its rich got fat off of the poor. Its leaders got fat off of the people. And because of the general injustice that had pervaded the culture, God pronounced judgment, first on Samaria and then on Jerusalem. But Micah saw hope on the other side of judgment. And that's why each of his oracles of judgment are followed by oracles of restoration, in which Yahweh will personally overcome his people's failures and fulfill his covenant word. Let's take a look at the first judgment restoration reversal. So in chapter 1, the wound of Samaria, its sickness, had spread to Jerusalem, and therefore that city was promised that it would be exiled. But we learn here in 2:12 to 13 that it wouldn't stay there. Two little verses at the end of chapter 2 contain a world of expectation. The faithful remnant would be regathered and would return to the land. But who is going to gather them? Who is going to bring them back? Well, it is Yahweh himself. Let's take a look at this. God is going to bring them back. Yahweh says, I will surely assemble you. I will gather you. I will set them together like sheep in a fold. And who is this person? Yahweh, the Lord who's at their head. He is their king, the king who passes before them as the shepherd king, God himself. Now, that reminds me of a certain good shepherd that I've heard about somewhere near to John chapter 10 in the New Testament, but I digress. Now, let me ask you, is this sheepfold, the sheep pen that the shepherd king will bring the sheep back to? Well, of course, it is the city of Jerusalem. But last we saw, the city of Jerusalem was a pile of rubble. Take a look now at the reversal that we have from judgment to restoration in chapters 3 to chapter 4. It was a pile of rubble, but it won't stay there. 3 verse 12, Zion will be plowed as a field. Jerusalem will become a heap of ruins. The mountain of the house of the Lord, a wooded height. But, very next verse, in the latter days, the mountain of the house of Yahweh will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be lifted up above the hills. And some people think that this will actually be literal, that Mount Zion, Jerusalem, will physically be elevated higher up in the air. And, I don't know, it's kind of compelling. And Mount Zion, we learn in Isaiah 4 and Isaiah 60, will have a light shining up from the top of the mountain, the very glory of God beaming out. And all nations, all peoples will see this light and they will gather to it. They will come up to the mountain of the house of the Lord, the house of the God of Jacob. Why? Because they want to learn from him. They want Yahweh to teach them so that they can walk in his paths. For the Torah of Yahweh will go forth out of Zion to all the nations. And when the nations come to Jerusalem to hear the wisdom of the king of Jerusalem, that king, he will judge between the peoples. And this is like making decisions, like political decisions, because the nations will bring their disputes, geopolitical questions to the king, and he will decide those disputes. And when he proclaims his just judgment over the nations, well, there's going to be no more spears or swords or war anymore, but there's going to be complete peace over the whole world. I mean, this is amazing. What a high point here in the book of Micah. But then here in this next section, 4:9 to 5:15, Micah is just he's gonna jump all around the timeline. So here in 4:1 to 8, this is the eschaton, the messianic kingdom, the millennium, if you have that eschatology. But then here in the very next verse, 4:8 to 4:9, Micah is going to ask, "Why do you cry? Is there no king in you?" He's going to jump back to the present, his own day. And then he's going to say that the inevitability of their injustice will result in exile in Babylon. So now we're talking about 586 BC. But then he's going to say that from there, from Babylon, you will be redeemed. You will return to the land. And now we're jumping from 586 to 539 with the Edict of Cyrus, king of Persia, saying that Israel can return from exile. But Micah can't let this little question hang in the air, there being no king on the throne in Jerusalem. And so in chapter 5, he's going to return to the shepherd king of chapter 2. And he's going to say that just like the first shepherd king, David, was born in the little town of Bethlehem, so the coming king would find his origin in that little town as well. We have to read that passage, don't we? Micah chapter 5. But you, O Bethlehem, from you shall come forth one who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming is from of old, from ancient of days. You might even say Genesis 49 or Genesis 3. And he will shepherd his flock. This is Micah chapter 2. He will be the shepherd king, and he will be great, and he will be their peace. The shepherd king will be the peace of Israel. And this isn't like I feel peace inside my heart, the warm and fuzzies. No, this is like political safety from the nations. And Israel is going to need this peace from the Prince of Peace because the nations are out to get them. So here, let's jump back on the timeline for a minute here. We have millennium, and then 586, 539, and now 3 BC. This is when Jesus Christ of Nazareth was born in Bethlehem. But in this next description, we're flashing forward to the time of the tribulation when all nations will come to battle against the city of Jerusalem. And its king, its ruler from Bethlehem will deliver them from this attack. But, and this is curious, the king will not do it alone. And this is actually the clearest example, really, in all of the prophets, which anticipates Israel herself participating in this final battle against the nations. Let's take a look at that moment in 4:13. So many nations will be assembled against you, Zion. However, Israel, the daughter of Zion, will be told, go and thresh. I will make your horn iron, your hooves bronze, and you, O people of Israel, you will beat in pieces many peoples. And then down in 5 verse 8, the remnant of Jacob, among the nations and the peoples, they will become like a lion, like a young lion, which goes out and treads down and tears in pieces the nations which attack her. Now this is, honestly, let's admit it, this is surprising language, but consider how this moment resembles the David and Goliath conflict from the book of Samuel. All the nations of the world are gathering against this tiny little city of Jerusalem. And we read in the book of Zechariah that its walls are broken down and 2/3 of its people are killed. But then at the final hour, the king will return. We have the return of the king to deliver his people from the onslaught of the nations. And perhaps this king is waiting for the last hour so that the faithless within Israel can be purged from the faithful remnant. That's what the last 6 verses of chapter 5 describe. It's much like Zechariah 13, the beginning of that chapter, where it says that Yahweh will cut off from among Israel its reliance on military might, perhaps alliances with nations, and its idolatry as well. In the final section of the book, the last restoration section, 7:8 to 20, it's going to return to the faith of Micah. That's what we ended with, what we concluded with last lecture, where Micah is going to conclude his lament with these words, "But as for me, though I face the prospect of a long and miserable siege from Assyria, I will look to and I will wait for the God of my salvation." And that's 7:7. The very next verse, 7:8, Lady Zion, the city of Jerusalem, will be personified as a woman who has this same faith as Micah. And she's gonna say, "Rejoice not over me, O my enemy, when I fall, because I will rise," she says. And the remnant will come back, will return to the city of Jerusalem. And the boundary of the nation of Israel will be far extended. It will go to its full extent, as prophesied in Genesis 15. And then all the people of Israel will dwell as in a garden land. It will be like a return to the Garden of Eden. But we have to ask, why? What reason does Lady Zion have to be what faith? What reason does she have to have this faith that she will be restored? I mean, hasn't Jerusalem become itself a city of blood? It is emptied of all the righteous, and it is filled with injustice. Why would she think that the city of blood would be restored like this? Well, the sinner can always stand confidently before God because he is a forgiving God. Let's turn now to the name of Micah himself. Micah the meaning of his name is "who is like Yahweh." That's what his name means. And Micah the prophet is going to pose that question in the final verses of his book. Take a look. Who is like Yahweh? Let's go to chapter 7. Who is a God like you? I've just spent 7 chapters talking about judgment coming on Jerusalem and Samaria, and hints of hope and what Yahweh will do to restore his people. And now I am asking, who is a God like you, pardoning iniquity, passing over transgression? For I know that you will not retain your anger forever, because you are a God who delights in steadfast love. You delight in hesed, and you will again have compassion on us. You will tread our iniquities underfoot, and you will cast all of our sins into the depths of the sea. Because of the character of Yahweh, we know that he will forgive our sins. And because of the promise of Yahweh, we know that he will bless the nation of Israel, Abraham's descendants, and that blessing will flow out from Zion to all the nations of the earth.